morning, everybody. I wanted to bring you our weekly update. So from Monday, January 18th through Sunday, January 24th, we had 4 contracts turned in last week. 2 belonged to Shana and 2 belonged to Katie. Then we had 2 closings last week. 1 belonged to Hannah and 1 belonged to Mike Shepard. Congratulations, you guys. I look forward to giving you an update next week. Good morning, this is Stacey Hendren, Client Coordinator with Acquisto Real Estate, and I am here to talk about a couple paragraphs in the 1 to 4 family residential contract that's resale with TREC, which is the Texas Real Estate Commission. So let me make myself smaller and we'll get right on that quickly. Okay, so the things that I wanted to go over, the first one is the surveys. Now, this is the current 1 to 4 family, the new 1 to 4 family that will come out in a couple of months. I checked it, and the only difference that I saw was that this is moving from page 2 to page 3. So there really aren't any changes with this. It does follow under the title policy and survey portion of the contract. So let's go to it. So surveys. We're going to cover number 2 and number 3 first, and then we'll circle back around to number 1. Okay, so number 2, within blank amount of days of the effective date of this contract, buyer shall obtain a new survey at buyer's expense. Buyer is deemed to receive the survey on the date of actual receipt or the date specified in this contract, whichever is earlier. So guys, that last few words of this is super important, whichever is earlier. So if we have a buyer that is going to purchase a survey, we want to make sure that there is enough time between the end of the option period and the survey being due for this to happen. We don't want to have this be a very small amount of time, because at that point the buyer will absorb the cost of the survey even if they back out of the contract during the option period. So let's say we have negotiated out a 7-day option period, and after that we want to give another 7 to 10 days to allow this survey to be ordered, because when it says whichever's earlier, if the date is earlier and we have not received that survey, then the contract reads that it's deemed that we have received it by that date. So if for some reason we have a date on here and we have not received that survey, guys, we need to amend this portion of the contract. So please, let's keep that in mind. I do watch for that when we have contracts and my dates and stuff, but let's give it enough time. And when I say enough time, if you have a client that's purchasing a house that's in a standard neighborhood that's not far out, that doesn't have a lot of land, 7 to 10 days is plenty of time to receive a survey, but I'm talking about 7 to 10 days after the option period ends. So let's keep in mind, let's put in there maybe 20 days or so. And again, it's always negotiable, but if you have questions, always ask me. I'm happy to help. Number 3, within blank days of the effective date of this contract, seller at seller's expense shall furnish a new survey to buyers. Well, it's the same thing as if we have a seller, if we're on the selling side, if we have a seller that has to absorb the cost of a new survey, we want to go ahead and give it enough time too after the option period. So please remember, let's put a little bit longer in here, these 2 sections if they're there. If we're negotiating where we have a seller, make sure there's plenty of time in here that we have to get that survey out. So let's go to number 1. Now, what I find interesting is in the last week, I've had 2 separate transactions where there has been, this paragraph has been misconstrued, and I'm finding that it's often misconstrued and people don't understand it. So I'm going to read it and then we're going to break it down. Within blank days of the effective date of this contract, seller shall furnish to buyer and title company seller's existing survey of the property and a residential real property affidavit promulgated by the Texas Department of Insurance, which is the T47 affidavit. If seller fails to furnish the existing survey or affidavit within the time prescribed, buyer shall obtain a new survey at seller's expense no later than 3 days prior to closing date. If the existing survey or affidavit is not acceptable to the title company or buyer's lenders, buyer shall obtain a new survey at either seller's expense or buyer's expense no later than 3 days prior to the closing date. Okay, we're going to break this down really quick. So, within the negotiated amount of days of the contract, the seller is to furnish the buyer and the title company their existing survey and the T47. It says both of them. Then it gets really bold. Now, the T47, let me go over that really quickly, must be notarized. It is a document that has to be notarized. So, survey and notarized T47. If the seller provides to furnish the existing survey or the affidavit within the time prescribed, buyer shall obtain a new survey at seller's expense no later than 3 days prior to the closing date. Okay, this says it in bold letters, in bold words, and that's why I get confused why people don't understand it a lot, is if the seller fails to furnish the survey or the affidavit, so either one, the buyer can obtain a new survey at the seller's expense. I mean, that's what it reads. So, and then the other portion of it says if the existing survey, so let's say the seller does turn in the survey and affidavit, if they're not acceptable to the title company or the lender, the buyer shall obtain a new survey at either seller or buyer's expense, which is ever negotiated, no later than 3 days prior to the closing date. So if they turn both things in and they're not, one of them's not acceptable, then then whoever it's negotiated will pay for the new one. So that's pretty cut and dry. But guys, so what's happened in the last week is we've had 2 buyers, separate transactions. The listing agents on the other side have given us the survey, and I've asked for the T47, and they don't turn them in, and we're past the time period, and I re-ask for them, and they're like, oh, well, the survey is, nothing's changed on it. The seller hasn't done anything. They can sign the T47 at the title company at closing. Well, no, that's not how this works. It's not what it says. And the buyer can have a new survey at the seller's expense at that point because the seller hasn't turned over what they're supposed to turn over. So we are working through those issues with our files, and it's not a big issue because the good news is most of the surveys that we have are actually, I think, within a year old, and nothing's changed, and they're pretty current. So, but guys, if our sellers don't turn these in within the time prescribed, and I put that in my emails that go out immediately when we're executed for contract, if they haven't turned in a T47 and a survey, but this contract says they're going to, they will be responsible for the cost of the new survey. So please make sure you're explaining this paragraph correctly to your clients. I don't want anybody to get to the closing table and go, why am I charged for a survey? Well, you turned in the T47 2 days late. And with that being said, the buyer decided to order a new survey, and they have the right to do that. So let's try with all of our listings to make sure that we are getting the surveys and T47s prior to going on the market, and that we're stressing the importance to the sellers of they will have to absorb the cost of a new survey if they do not turn it in. So if you have questions about this is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about. Please let me know. I've had a couple title companies tell me that this is actually probably one of the most misconstrued paragraphs in the entire in the entire contract, that people, even though it's there, they just don't read through it. So let's make sure that we have read our contracts over and over and that we fully understand them. The next portions that I want to talk about, so on the current contract, it's on page 7, and on the new contract, it's moving to page 8. So we're going to go over the notice section, and this, I know this seems pretty basic, but you would be surprised at how often I do see one side of this not filled out. Okay, guys, notices. All notices from one party to the other must be in writing and are effective when mailed to, hand-delivered to, or transmitted by fax or electronic transmission as follows. Whoever we represent, whether it be buyer or seller, please make sure my email address is going here. This signals the title company, the lender, the other agent involved, or the opposite side agent, that it is okay to allow me to have copies of everything that's going back and forth. So please remember to put Stacey at acquistorealestate.com on one of these sites, whoever we're representing. Please go ahead and make sure if you have two separate clients that we get their email addresses, both of them, either here. Right now we can get them wherever we can, and at least get one phone number, if not both, on here. Now, on the opposite side, if we don't have any of the other clients' information, please go ahead and make sure you put the opposite side agent's email address and phone number, and then maybe do care of broker. And that way, people know that it can go to one of those places, and hopefully they fill in their client's information. Now, the cool thing on the new 1 to 4 family, which I'll pull up really fast, is, again, this is page 8, not page 7 on the new one. They're actually giving us more space to put double emails instead, and so that's really, really good. So I'm really excited about that and happy about that. So that is so important, because if there is anything legally that needs to go out, we need to make sure that all of the email addresses, phone numbers, anything we have can be put in there. So just be aware of that. So number 22, agreement of parties. And again, moving from page 7 to page 8 on the new contracts, this is any document that is part of the 1 to 4 family afterwards. So this the third party financing addendum. If your buyers are doing financing, please check that box. If there is an HOA and the property is subject to a mandatory membership, please check that box. If you have the buyer, or there's a buyer on the opposite side that has to sell their other property, please make sure that box is checked. Let's make sure if we have a seller, or we're doing a seller's temporary residential lease, that we check the seller's temporary residential lease box, not the buyer's temporary residential lease box. If there is a lead-based paint addendum that goes with it, please make sure you check that. If there is, I'm trying to see, I don't think there's not, so the other box. So this would be good for things like non-realty item addendum, on-site sewer. If there's an on-site sewer, that needs to go here, or any other documentation that is part of the contract that our clients sign as part of the contract. We need to have them listed. Guys, this makes me more efficient, it makes the title companies more efficient, and it makes the lenders more efficient when we have all of the boxes checkmarked correctly. So please, let's try to go through and checkmark those and make sure we have all of the right things checkmarked, and that we have all of the correct documents that go with it. So that is what's important about that. Now, the cool thing on the new 1 to 4 family, because there are changes being made to it, is we see a couple more that are added. The addendum regarding the residential leases, and that's if there happens to already be a lease in place on the property, or there are leases for, and the addendum for regarding fixture leases, so security systems, your Ring doorbell. I mean, if there's a lease, the Ring's not going to have a lease, but if you have leases on anything with the house, these two items are going to be part of it now. Security cameras, there's a lot that's going to go on with the new contract, which I think they're welcome changes. I think they're going to help a lot of things in the future, and I think that we are, I'm happy to see these changes being made, and I'm super happy to learn more about them and discuss them with you guys in the near future. So I'm always here if there's any questions. Please feel free to contact me at any time. You guys. I am going to share my top 5 favorite organizational items that I have in my household that I think everybody should have in theirs. So let me make myself smaller and show you guys those things. Okay, so number 5 are iDesign kitchen bins, a 4-piece set. You can actually buy lots of different sets on this. Costco has them, and I find them super helpful. I do not have them in my refrigerator. I actually use these for pantry storage. I use them in my linen closets to store different things like soaps and body wash and things that I can see in our medicine cabinet, where I can organize our medications and see them, make sure we have all the children's stuff that we need, everything. I love these, and they work in the refrigerator too. They are fantastic. I think they're very well worth having them, and they just, to me, they help being able to look and see everything that you need to be able to organize. Again, Costco has these. I found them also on Amazon, and they have all different sets and portions, but I can't say enough good things. So that is my number 5 pick. My number 4 pick is the iDesign Linus Divided Lazy Susans. Now, there are all sorts of different Lazy Susans out there that you can use. These are great. Now, I know they're showing craft stuff stored in them. They're great for the pantry. Guys, you stick like your kids' granola bars, I mean, all this stuff in them, and you can have different stuff, and it twirls around, and it is amazing and nice and a space saver. And we have a super small pantry, so it's always nice to find good things that can help keep it a little easier and a little more organized. My number 3 pick, OXO storage containers. You can buy these absolutely anywhere, Bed Bath & Beyond, Container Store, Amazon. I mean, everybody's got them, and you can buy them in round canisters or square canisters or whatever shapes and sizes you want. They have everything. And my oldest child likes to cook and bake. She bakes actually more than anything, and these are a lifesaver with the storage of flours and sugars and all the little things that she likes to decorate with. And then we can always see what we have. We always know how much of an item we have, and if we need to go to the store and get more or anything, it's great. And then it keeps it sealed, and it's got a nice little pop thing. And I know a lot of people like glass over the plastic, but right now with my children, I feel that the plastic is just better. We've actually dropped a couple here and there, and I was ever so thankful they weren't glass. So I really highly recommend these for everything. And cereal, oh my gosh, so my youngest is a cereal fanatic, and she likes to have 2 or 3 different types of cereal open, and this way they stay good. I mean, they don't go bad, they stay good. It's so much easier, and she can pour them herself without making a huge mess, so it's fantastic. Okay, my number 2 pick is the Container Store Alpha Mesh White 80-inch over-the-door rack. Now, I have a super small pantry. Our house's pantry is tiny, and the first thing we bought when we moved in was one of these, and it actually has been so helpful. You can have different shelves. We bought, I believe, just the kit because we could see what was in it, but this Alpha rack right here, the strip that goes down your door, it's so easy to hang their products on. I mean, they make it pretty mindless, and you can get a lot of stuff in these. We use ours tremendously for a lot of different things, but I mean, they don't do a very good job showing how much storage you can get, but we get a lot of stuff in ours, and it makes it so much nicer for just being able to have it there. It gives us a little more room in the pantry. Okay, so my number 1 pick that most of you guys have heard me talk about recently is my gift storage solution rack. Guys, this was life-changing for me this year. So for those who don't know, my husband is 1.5 feet taller than I am. I'm 5'3" on a good day, and Larry is 6'6", so actually not a whole 1.5 feet, but he's a lot taller than I am. So when he would put up our wrapping paper, it was in a container, and he would put it on a top shelf in our closet, and anytime I had to get it out, I would have to get the ladder out. and I would have to crawl up the ladder and I'd have to get it down. And then I never knew what we had. Like this year at Christmas, we had no clue what kind of wrapping stuff we had or didn't have. And so here we were wrapping gifts, and we had like, we had no gift bags. We didn't even know we didn't have gift bags. So, and we wrapped last minute this year, just because everybody's home all the time and it made it a little more challenging. So, guys, this thing, I purchased it. It is life changing. I installed one on the back of our hall closet door. Again, our hall closet doesn't get use other than coats, and I think our vacuum's in there and a couple other things. But this, I put it on my door. I put all of our stuff in it. I can see exactly what we have and don't have. This was game changing for me, and probably my most favorite organizational purchase I have ever made. But it's, I can't say enough. I'm almost speechless because I love this thing so much. So anything you purchase from the Container Store, I will say it's an investment, but I find that a lot of their products are well worth it because they are easy to put together and they work really well together. But if you guys ever need to talk organization, I love it, and I'm happy to talk about it anytime. Hope everybody has a fabulous day.